Hi crafty viewers, for today's card we are making a birthday card, Happy Birthday to Me. So sit back and watch how I put this card together using some free products out of the Saleabration catalog. And let's get started on our card. For today's card we're going to be using the paper from the beautiful Flower and Field Designer Series paper, and this is one of the free items that you can earn still during Saleabration. Saleabration does go through a week from today, which is Monday the 21st, and this is one of the papers that you can earn for free with a $50 purchase. If you're in the mood for shopping and earning free stuff, I sure would appreciate it if you did shop in my online store. I'll put a link to that down in the show notes below. The other pieces of cardstock that we will need for today's project are 2 quarter sheets of basic black paper, a half sheet of Flirty Flamingo, as well as an extra quarter sheet of Flirty Flamingo. I did cut this paper down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Nope, sorry, 4 by 5 1/2. Then I trimmed it to 5 1/4 by 4 because I wanted to have 2 sets of 1/8 inch reveals on each edge. So the quarter sheets, one piece is cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So that is just 1/8 of an inch larger. And then the second piece we're going to cut into 2 matting pieces. I also have just 1 sheet of white paper, whether it's your basic white or your whisper white cardstock, and that will be used to stamp on the outside and the inside. For this card, I'm going to be using 2 other free products, also in Saleabration. The beautiful Touch of Ink stamp, and we're going to use the flower out of that, as well as the solid fill-in, and then this little tiny leaf fill-in as well. I'm also going to be using the Approaching Perfection stamp, and this is going to be a birthday card because it's my birthday. So I thought, you know what, let's make this a happy birthday card. So we're going to use the Happy Birthday, and that's going to be stamped in some cherry cobbler ink. So let's get started. So the first thing I did was I did cut the Designer Series paper down into a 4-inch strip, and then I cut that down to 5 1/4. Set that aside. I'm also going to be using the stitched rectangle dies, and I'm going to be using 1, 2, 3, the 4th largest die, and that you can get 2 pieces from this 5 1/2 inch by 4 1/4 inch paper, and we're going to cut 2 of these. Now that gives me 2 pieces of white cardstock, and those are both 2 5/8 by 4 inches. Now behind that we're going to put black cardstock, and I am going to cut that to 2 3/4 by 4 1/8. Now you can get, since this is 5 1/2, you can actually get, just cut this right in half, that's your 2 3/4 inch pieces. Right back. Okay. There we go. We still have 1 piece left over, and that's going to go on the inside of the card. So we just lopped off 1/8 of an inch from the left and from the top. Now on to our Flirty Flamingo. Flirty Flamingo, this took a while to get the measurements correct. So make sure you follow the directions. I will have a link to an instruction sheet that will be on the blog post that accompanies this video, and you can get the measurements there. Okay, so first things first, we are going to score this at 5 1/2 inches, because that will create a top folding card. Next, this is an important measurement. You're going to cut at 2 5/8 of an inch. not at 2 7/8, 2 5/8 of an inch. This little piece you can set aside. Now you're also going to take this piece of Flirty Flamingo and you're also going to cut that at 2 5/8 of an inch. And we're going to take that 2 5/8 and set that aside because we want to use the 2 7/8 of an inch piece that's left over. And I'm going to give this a nice fold here. Okay, next, all we're doing is just a bunch of cutting. This is really simple. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to take that same stitched rectangle die and we are going to cut it out of the middle of the striped side of the paper. And here's an important tip. When you're cutting the paper to cut your 4-inch strip, have it facing up and then cut your strip so that you can see which way the stripes are going. That way you make sure that the stripes are going in the right direction rather than cutting a 4-inch slice off going this way, which would give it a different look. I'm sure it would look nice, but it's just a different look. So I am going to center this right smack dab in the middle. And I'll be right back. I'm going to go cut this on my die cutting machine. Okay, here we go. Here is our piece with our little piece cut out. Now you can cut this, run it through 2 different ways. And I'll tell you why I chose to run it through with stripes facing up. When you have this flowered piece on the front, because it's so dark and it's going to be set against black, you're not going to really notice the stitching on the sides. But when you open up the card, you will notice the stitching on the inside. So I thought, you know what, this is the part you're going to actually see it because it's a little easier to see than buried in the flowers. We can start assembling our card. So on the inside of the card, we're just going to adhere down our black paper. And that is going to give you a 1/8 inch, or excuse me, a 1/16 inch edge all around. And then we can adhere down our frame, and the frame is going to go with the striped sides up. This also creates a 1/16 inch reveal all around. Then we can take one of our pieces of the white framed piece that we cut out, and if you wanted to put a sentiment on the inside, I would stamp it now. And this sentiment is actually a very sweet little sentiment. But since I don't know who I'm going to be sending this to, obviously not myself, I'm going to leave it open on the inside. You can choose which sentiment you want. And this fits perfectly inside this little window. Now let's work on the outside. This is a very simple card to put together. We're going to be taking one of the pieces that we cut from the black cardstock. And we're going to put that right here on the front. Again, 1/16 inch all around. And then we're going to take the piece that we cut out from the striped paper, and we're going to adhere that right in the middle. 1/16 inch of a reveal all around. Now this is the piece that we cut out, and this is the 2 7/8 inch by 4 1/4 inch piece. And we're just going to put some adhesive right here on the top. It doesn't go all the way down. So you want to make sure that it is, when you're putting the adhesive down, you don't want it to go below this edge so that it doesn't glue the card shut. And so we're going to center that. And we're going to put that right over where we have the cutout on the inside, and that will hide that, so it's a surprise when you open the card. We're going to take the other piece of the black cardstock that we cut. We're going to adhere that down right into the middle. And before we adhere down our last piece, we're actually going to stamp this. And I want to stamp it before I stick it down, just in case something happens. I can always restamp it. And it's easier than doing that after it's glued down. So I'm going to take some Flirty Flamingo ink as well as some Cherry Cobbler ink. And I'm going to be using Memento to stamp the image first. So first things first, I do want to put down the birthday greeting because that will drive where the flower gets positioned. And I want to make sure that I don't put the flower and then not have room for the sentiment. So I have my stamp, I'm going to center it, and I'm going to go about 3/8 of an inch up from the bottom. And that will give me about the same amount of space on each side, left, right, and bottom. Next, I'm going to take my Memento ink and I'm going to ink up my stamp really good. And I have to say, I'm very impressed. I left this open overnight one night, and surprisingly, it did not dry out. And you can position whichever way you want. I kind of want the flowers to be upright a little bit, and then that means that the stem is going to be a little bit curved. Now, if you have a stamp positioning tool that has a foam backing to it for photopolymer stamps, I find that that gives a good base to stamp, and for the photopolymer stamps, they just come out a little bit better if you have something soft to stamp against. Next, we're going to take the fill-in stamp, and this is one of the distinctive stamps, which means that it does give a little bit of a blotchier appearance when it first stamps, but then the ink does kind of disperse on the paper. And it is also a stamp that is not sized perfectly for your stamped image. So you just want to get it down as close as you can, realizing that there may be some sections on there that aren't completely filled in, and that's just part of the design. Now, the very last piece that I'm going to stamp is I'm going to use this little leaf stamp. And I'm actually going to use that with the Cherry Cobbler ink. And that's just going to give a little bit of extra interest in the middle of the flower. And so I'm going to take it and I'm going to stamp it gently upright, and then second sideways, and then a third time on the medium-sized flower with whatever was left over. Now make sure that if you're using a stamping block and you get a little bit of ink on it, that with a teeny tiny stamp like this, that you don't accidentally get that ink spot on the paper. Okay, the last thing that we have left to do is just tape this down into the middle of our card. And you know what? I'm not going to flip that over. I'm actually going to put the tape down on here just in case it's not dry. I did have a card that will be coming up in a video where I stamped over some embossed gold embossing, and it did not, I smeared everything. Now, the good news is it was salvageable, but you do want to try to not press on your stamped image if you can help it. And there is our very delightful birthday card made with mostly free products out of the Saleabration catalog. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, if you want to hit the subscribe button, I do post videos about twice a week and would love to have you as a subscriber. And if you are interested in recreating this project and don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator of your own, I would love it if you would shop in my online store. Check the show notes below. Thanks and have a great day.